As if you need me to tell you these things, I'm just going to do it anyway because it's the proper and right thing to do. David Duchovny is an award-winning actor, writer, director, New York Times best-selling author, singer-songwriter, hyphenate, Renaissance man, hyphenate. With an acting career spanning more than 3 decades, he is a 2-time Golden Globe winner and a 4-time Emmy nominee. Meanwhile, as a musician, he's released 3 studio albums, Hell or High Water, Every Third Thought, and Gesture Land. Meaner while, and more to the point, he's a prolific author, having published 4 novels, including the New York Times bestseller, Holy Cow, Bucky fucking Dent. Yes, I can curse here, I'm allowed, even on the internet, especially on the internet. Who are we kidding? And that marked the flimsy pretext for his first visit to Town Hall back in 2017, Miss Subways, and Truly Like Lightning, published back in the dark days of February 2021. Jess Walter, meanwhile, is a former National Book Award finalist and winner of the Edgar Allan Poe Award, author of 7 novels, 1 book of short stories, 1 nonfiction book. His work has been translated into many languages, and his fiction has been selected 3 times for Best American Short Stories, as well as the Pushcart Prize and Best American Non-Required Reading. His stories, essays, and journalism have appeared, I'm just going to say lots of places, and then move on from there. They're here tonight to discuss David's latest work, The Reservoir, a twisted rom-com for our distanced time. Please join me in welcoming back Jess Walter and David Duchovny.
Wow, I think that's for you.
No. Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah. So, book number 5, is that correct?
Yeah, I count this as the 5th.
4.5.
You know, I'm going to count it as 5.
No, it's 5.
No Roger Maris asterisk for me.
Single-handedly bringing back the novella, too. So this book has gotten such great reviews. Compared to Thomas Mann and Don DeLillo, smart, compelling love letter to New York. This intelligent effort further burnishes Duchovny's status as a gifted novelist. So my first question is, stay in your own lane. I guess that wasn't a question, was it?
I'm just burnishing all over the place.
You're burnishing, yeah. I mean, knowing how this came about, it's such a pandemic piece, and you talked just a little bit about, the origins of coming up with this idea, and how staring out your window becomes this book.
Well, I remember when I wrote the first maybe 5 or 6 pages, I actually was emailing with you, and I said, I think I'm writing a short story. I've never written one. Does this seem like an interesting short story? And Jess immediately read it and wrote back, because he's such a mentor. He said, no, this is crap. You should just... Who is this? He wrote.
I said it was burnishing crap. Yeah.
Please lose my email. No, but he was encouraging, and then I just continued on, and he all along the way, he's always been very supportive, I have to say, but that's for another time, when I'm in that seat, and never. And I spent part of the pandemic and part of my life in New York. I have a wonderful view of the reservoir, and the character in the book takes these time-lapse photos of the sunrises over the reservoir, which is what I was doing, which I did even before the pandemic. But I just kind of would take credit for this beautiful view and call myself a photographer. And I thought, oh, okay, well then I can imagine one of these Wall Street guys, one of these guys that because they own art, they think they are artists. And this is a guy who thinks at the end of his career now he has something to say, and he's going to say it with his art, which are these time-lapse photographs. So that was really the germ of it. And it really started as a satire of this guy, because I didn't like him at first, but then I'm sure you can attest to this. You can't really, unless you're Swift or whatever. Satire, I guess I'm not a satirist. And I began to kind of fall for the guy a little bit as I went on writing, and began to sympathize with whatever was eating him. And, and I sympathize with with the desire to say more than you can, with the desire to be better than you are as an artist. I think most writers would, except for Jess, who actually gets it right every time. But so I began to fall for him for that. And I mentioned The Enduring Chill to you. I don't know if you read it after the Flannery O'Connor short story, but that was a story that stuck with me forever, which was about this writer dying young who realizes, no, I never did it. I'm not going to be a writer. I'm dying, and I didn't do it. So he was kind of the middle-aged version of that, and that's how it started. Was that the question? There was no question.
But
I was just burnishing my reputation as a gifted extemporaneous speaker.
He is one of those criminals of the 2008, 2009 financial crunch. And you talk about, for a while, he paid a price when accountability was all the rage. And so you do set this character up, to sort of be unlikable, and yet immediately there's the longing for connection. Yeah. And then to put that person in the midst of a pandemic, we were all obviously doing that. At one point you described the hothouse triathlon of how many steps to the bathroom, how many steps to this place.
Well, because you have your phone with you at all times, and it'll tell you how many steps you've done in a day. Yeah. And so he had figured out the 40 steps from the kitchen to the bathroom was the sprint. And then 60 steps was the mid-distance. Then there was the marathon, which took him, some other place.
New York must have been a wild place. It's one of the few things we all experience, so universal for everyone. What was it like for you in New York during that time?
It's very much like it is in the novel. Just quiet, eerily quiet. The thing about New York, or most major cities, but I think New York mostly, is it's really loud even when it's quiet, and that was gone. I could hear the animals in Central Park. I could hear the ducks. I could hear the crickets at night, and there was just this eerie silence and lack of movement, punctuated by almost ceaseless ambulance runs. And it was kind of horrifying to be sitting, ingesting A World on Fire on your screen, seeing that there was a million things happening a day, and there was absolutely nothing happening in your life. It was this weird vertigo of nothing and then everything. And I just started to think about how does one remain sane with that if you don't have a human connection. And I saw the tents go up, in Central Park for the runoff from the hospitals, and it's all shocking to think about, but it's also amazing to think about how normalized craziness becomes, how quickly normalized craziness becomes. So I was like, yeah, there's the hospitals catching the runoff from the virus. Like, fuck, really? When you step back and remember. But it was really the silence, and the cliched brotherhood, sisterhood feeling at 7 p.m. when people would actually go to their windows and make noise, and you'd see people that you never saw before. I'd be like, hey, that's my neighbor. Never seen him before. I guess he's my neighbor. I should get to know him. And then when you can go outside again, you're like, I got to duck that guy, because I was making really friendly faces at him, and I don't need another friend. I really don't. Here's the other story.
I was just imagining your neighbors. That's that asshole from Californication.
Yeah. No, it's a better story than that. I have a band, and I make music, and I'm not a natural singer. So I work at it, and I have a vocal teacher, and during the pandemic I could do it over the phone with him, but I'm loud when I do it, and the city's quiet now. And I'd seen my neighbor, who I decided I thought I was going to be his friend, and then I decided I wasn't going to be his friend. But he looks like Santa Claus, and he in the book, Ridley's kind of jealous of him because he's got this cool horn that he's blowing for the hospital workers. And I'm like, I want a fucking horn too. Like, well, I'm just like there going, yeah. And he's like, So I was like, I'm a little jealous, envious of this guy. So I'm doing my, ha 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 ha, but loud, and stretching, going to a point that's not musical, but I'm like opening the vocal cords up, and I'm doing it in my bedroom with my windows open, and all of a sudden I look across the way, and there's the Santa Claus guy, and he's like, "Are you okay?" Honestly, that happened. I said, "Yes, I'm just singing. Just singing."
So there won't be an album with the two of you, I'm guessing.
Fuck that guy.
His accompanying you on flugelhorn. And living above the park that way, I mean, the park, was the park empty also?
The park was less empty than other places in New York. You could go in at least at first. But at first, you got to remember, we didn't know how it infected. We didn't know that it wasn't just in the air. Everybody was afraid that it was floating around. So there wasn't a lot of activity in the park, but the sense was that you couldn't get it that way. So there was some. Yeah.
Your work is really full of allusions. Thomas Mann's A Death in Venice comes to mind, but also Poe. There's such a rich New York Gothic quality to it. And the fact that Central Park used to be a potter's graveyard, that all the bodies that are buried there, what might be under the reservoir. I had never thought of Central Park as spooky until I read this. Was that because of the pandemic, or do you feel like you've always sort of seen the park?
Well, I grew up in the 70s, so Central Park was always spooky. Yeah, you had to have your wits about you if you wanted to go into the park at night. Not so much any longer, but certainly back then. But now some of that was just research. I wanted to know who built the reservoir, and then I just kind of went into Central Park lore. And found out about the Potter's Field and that there were indigent people, nameless people buried there. And then it became, at some point, as this guy descends into what is like a fever dream or madness or his quest, he, in a kind of messiah sense, is going to be the one that reclaims all the unnamed dead, all the people that have been discounted and unnamed by history. In his final delirium, he is a guy that thought that in some way that greatness was going to be his, and he's finally achieving it by pulling the dead up out of the reservoir.
And he meets this woman in a real classic Hollywood meet cute way.
Yeah.
He's taking time-lapse photographs of the park at night, which you also did during that. Was it during that period you were taking those
I don't like where those questions are going, actually.
but he sees her light across the park.
Yeah.
Sending him Morse code
He
signals.
thinks it's Morse code. He gets a little Google's Morse code, and he tries to. I forget what he tries to flick, but it's really hard when you think about. Well, it's hard to write because I was like, up, down, up, down, up, down. I was like, well, what is that really, up, down, up? How do you do the long version? Up, down, up, down, up. It's this kind of stuff. And actually, the most rewriting I did in this book was the damn Morse code sequence.
Light switch. Yeah.
Because I'd go and that doesn't work that way.
That is the difference between good and a rave, right there.
Love the book. The Morse code was crap.
Morse code. Yeah.
Doesn't know shit about Morse code, that kid.
Yeah. And so, as you mentioned, you play music, you write, direct, write novels. I was told there'd be no polymath, but there is apparently. Do you feel like when you're in New York, you're closer to yourself as a novelist, as a fiction writer? Does something about being in the city, because at least 3 of your books really feel like New York is such a part of them. Do you think that living there brought the fiction writer out in you more?
Well, I think you understand this because you write about your childhood home a lot as well, and it's just in your DNA at some point. So when you're recalling emotionally charged places, they just come to me as New York mostly. I also am very lazy and don't like to research, so if I'm writing a book, I'll set it in New York. I know where everything is, and I can speak about it knowledgeably. Whereas if I tried to set something in Spokane, I'd probably have to go to Spokane and figure it out for a while. And I don't want to do that.
That's fair. Yeah.
Not that I have anything against Spokane. I'm just lazy.
It's a lot like New York, actually. Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, very similar.
Yeah. It's the New York of the Pacific Northwest.
It's the New York of Spokane County. Yeah. It's the Paris of Spokane County, actually. And then the tone of the book is, so you're following around this crank who at various times is infuriating, and then you're able to make us care about him, and the way he misses his daughter. There's a moment though where you talk about he doesn't want to be one of those New Balance wearing grandfathers, and I noticed autobiography just seeps into the work. The scholars will be debating that forever.
Yeah, but these are kind of hip. They got mauve and
Yeah, they're beautiful, Grandpa. They're really nice. Yeah.
They're comfortable.
Get your sleeping cap on.
Tell me when I should take my gummy.
Yeah, you probably should. It is time.
I think there should be 30 minutes left.
We were debating when to take the gummy, and mine was 2.5 hours ago, so it's starting to wear off. I'm not even sure what my question was. Oh, the tone. So it's filled with these philosophical riffs. He remembers this speech he's gone to years earlier about whether or not something is a symptom or symbol, which just hovers over the book. You're able to in a thin book, make it this really philosophical.
That came out of nowhere because...
that's what I wondered. Did you go to that lecture?
I did, but it was when I was in college. And there was a professor at Princeton named Zathmary, S-Z. In the book, he's S-Z. And he was legendary at Princeton for two reasons. One was he never published anything, and yet he got tenure. So he was like, he's the god of tenure. How do you do that without ever doing anything? And the other, he may have published a paper. I don't want to, anger the Zathmary people. And the other legendary aspect to him was, there were two aspects. One was that his brother was Bill Dana, Jose Jimenez, which was a big show business thing for us. And the other was that perhaps his brother had written the theme for Get Smart. So you can imagine this guy was a rock star. But he's a tiny old man, and he'd had a stroke, and he was a very kind of charismatic presence. And he came out, and he was teaching a course called Meaning and Knowledge in the Arts, which when you think about it, it's probably a joke, right? Can you imagine, meaning and knowledge in the arts? So, of course, as a hungry undergraduate, I was like, yes, I want meaning and knowledge in the arts. I mean, after I take this course, I'll know about meaning and knowledge in the arts. I'll be set.
I think you got to pick one, meaning or knowledge.
So the way I remember it was the first lecture. It's exactly as it is in the book. He came out, and he had one side of his face was immobile, and he came out and he sat, or he stood looking at us, and he nodded at somebody off stage, and onto the loudspeakers came, boom, 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 and then he nodded again, and it was like, and he's looking at us. And then he said, and please, I'm not making fun of him, I'm just doing an imitation of somebody who can only use half his face. He said, the symptom of a heart attack. I was like, is that a... Is that a symbol or a symptom of a heart attack? And I never found out. I don't know. So that finds its way almost verbatim, except it's at the 92nd Street Y.
But it becomes this, I mean, it hangs over the entire question of living through a pandemic, of what's insane versus what's normal behavior. Is this a symbol or is it a symptom? Is it?
And it was also like when you'd go through like the first symptoms of COVID, when they give you this, it was like fucking everything.
Yeah.
And everything was a symptom, even like being confused reading symptoms.
I've had this for 23 years. Yeah.
Thinking everything's a symptom was a symptom of COVID.
Yeah.
And then, of course, COVID becoming a symbol of so many things to all of us, you know. So, yeah, that kind of folded in nicely, that memory.
So Ridley is watching this these time-lapse videos. Decides to meet the woman who's sending him some messages, and so ventures out into the park. And those trips into the park have an almost medieval quality, especially when he meets a character called the Beast at first in the Ramble, where this guy rambles on in the Ramble.
There's only one conversation in the whole book, and it's
the only dialogue, and it's hilarious, and it's profane.
Okay, read a little. Should I read a little?
Yeah, read a little bit. So again, to set it up, Ridley has seen this woman.
It's going to take me a while to find it, so keep talking.
Okay, I'll talk really slow, and the edible is not kicking in. This is me talking slow. He's ventured into the park trying to find this mysterious woman, wandered into the Ramble, which is a maze-like area, and where people go for lots of wanton sex, and bumps into a 7-foot beast, a man in this army jacket, whose name is Man, M-A-N-N. We think it's Man, but he might be Ursus, he might be a bear. And anyway, they have this wild conversation. Did you find it?
Yeah, I found it.
Okay. And take it
don't know
away.
where to start.
Take it away, Tommy.
I don't know where to start. No. Should I?
You can just pick up. I know, it's so profane.
Yeah. Okay. So he's saying what's the monster, the bear is saying, you know, the Knicks are a hoax and AIDS is a hoax and
yeah, he's like a
kind of a Q kind of a guy.
Yeah, he's like a QAnon monster, conspiracy theorist. Everything is a hoax.
Yeah. So he says everything's a hoax, and then he says biggest hoax of all though is the woman you say you're chasing. Ridley, that's the hero of our book, was surprised at a sudden urge to defend the honor of his lady, a lady he did not know, and this chivalrous impulse emboldened him. Maybe you're confused, he wagged his head, regaining enough of his nerve to push back ever so slightly, as to the meaning of the word hoax. The giant pulled his chin back a bit and smirked. Maybe you're confused as to the meaning of my big dick. Somewhere on the distant east side, the hydraulic forks of a garbage truck rear loader banged 3 times like the worst rim shot ever. Wait, what? Yeah, damn, that wasn't quite it, was it? Maybe I should have said, maybe you're confused as to the meaning of the word, my big dick. No, I think the first one was better, Ridley said sincerely. Good, he thought, befriend him, legitimize his delusions, enter into his world of crazy so you can get the fuck out of it in one piece. The monster sighed. Yeah, I think you're right. My big dick is 3 words, actually, doesn't track. Mathematically, jokes are math. You like jokes? Not really. Why not? You're a joke, means you don't like yourself. Well, that wasn't funny. Says you hear the one about guy goes into the woods hunting bear? Ridley held up his hand. Wait, is this a long joke? One of those long animal jokes? Because I'm feeling very tired all of a sudden and I need to sit. Be my guest. Now, Ridley sat on the whole cold, hard ground, and he's thinking a lot, and he's trying to buy time. I'm going to skip a little. So he gestured at the man's old army jacket. Did you serve? Serve who? Ridley squinted and tried to read the name above the breast pocket of the jacket. In the darkness, he thought he could make out the name Man, M-A-N-N. He pointed at the ID. That military or fashion? He immediately regretted this line of inquiry because this man seemed to fold in on himself momentarily, lost in some memory of combat or carnage, perhaps. Eventually, he nodded slowly, saluted, and mumbled, "Semper Fi, Afghanistan." Ridley saluted back. He didn't know why. He'd never served or anything like that. The onset of his soldiering manhood had fallen luckily between wars. He just couldn't think of anything to say. "How long?" he eventually asked. Man looked up at the starry sky and pointed, outlining some elaborate serpentine shape with his finger and pausing for so long that Ridley assumed he wasn't going to answer the question. Finally, Man exhaled in a whisper, "Every night." Well, thank you for your service. Ridley hated when people parroted that phrase, found it borderline offensive in its self-satisfied display of easy, knee-jerk patriotism. There he was repeating it. He knew it meant nothing coming from him. It seemed to rub the veteran the wrong way, too. "Oh, you're fucking welcome. It was my fucking pleasure." Ridley flapped his lips in exasperation. You trying to empathize with me, motherfucker?" Man pronounced the word like it had introduced a rotten taste into his mouth. Ridley felt like he was walking gingerly through a minefield after this guy, like words had hidden histories for him, random tripwires that would set him off. Ridley saw the plate-sized hands ball into fists, so he tried to apologize vaguely again without appearing too damn scared and weak, just short of rolling on his back, exposing his soft belly and pissing himself. "I don't know, man. Yeah, maybe something like that." "Don't. Nothing makes me angrier. Don't feel my fucking pain. It's mine, not yours. Get it?"
Oh, that's great. I love that whole section, and I keep thinking, it's when you're watching a writer, juggle like 4 plates and then they put a chainsaw in. I keep thinking, how long is this? He's going to keep this dialogue going. It's just it's great how you're able to change tones. And speaking of change tones, I'm going to get to some audience questions, but I want to ask. You wrote one of my favorite pieces. As a writer, you always get this question: why do you write? And you wrote a piece for the Atlantic Monthly about writing for your family. And I'm just going to read a little bit of it because it's one of my favorite things I've ever... You going to take the gummy?
Yeah, I'm going to
Okay, it's probably a good time. So you don't get too emotional.
Thank you for your service.
I write for my daughter. No, it didn't work. I write for my daughter and my son because I have this belief fantasy that when I am gone, if my kids could pulp my novels, make a kind of mulch of them, much as I imagine researchers do to spin out the DNA of pulverized ancient dinosaur fossils, they could get my DNA from the pulpy mulch. That my kids, if they ran that book, DNA in the lab, could see me there clearly. The footprint, the fingerprint, Dad, David. I love that so much, and thinking about this book, how much it is about loneliness and parenting. Even with a character, even with a crank like Ridley, it still feels like that is true to you as a writer. That these things mean more, or maybe mean something different than the other artistic venues that you have.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I don't know why that is. Maybe is it the same for you? I don't know. But there's something, maybe because I'm a public person and my kids are exposed to other versions of myself that I want to disabuse them of in a way and say, hey, this is me somewhere else hiding. I don't know. I don't know, really. I can't answer that.
Your dad was a writer too, though.
Yeah, my dad was a writer.
Yeah, I wonder if that connection to your daughter has a tattoo of one of your song lyrics. "Stay on the train, the scenery will change."
Yeah, that was very moving to me when she did that.
Yeah, that's got to be incredibly powerful to make.
I mean, it is in a place where it's always hidden by her hair, but still.
Yeah, yeah. But that's got to be pretty moving. Do they respond to the books?
I don't think that they read them, and I don't really care. I just care that they're here. They're actually to replace me after I'm dead for them in a way.
Right.
I don't mean that as to be morbid or as a joke, but I just think like if they want to know their dad, there are places they can look if they care to when I'm gone, and they'll see a very authentic version of me in those places that's maybe even more authentic than me right here today. I don't know.
Now, I know you have an album recently out. You're working on other film projects. Do you see other books coming?
I do. I mean it's just you write a lot. You write. You have many things that you're always writing, and I don't write as much. And I need an idea to hang a feeling on or a story on. So I don't really. I have a couple that I'm thinking of, but I don't know. I'm very easily dissuaded. Like if I pitch somebody an idea, I'm saying I'm thinking of doing this as a novel, and they go, "Yeah, sounds good." I'm done.
Yeah.
Are you like that? No, you're not. You write everything.
I always sort of think I'm done for about a half an hour, and then I always feel like I have to write something to get the taste of the last one out of my mouth. Like, that one wasn't particularly good. I need to. No, I always think that I'm going to write something better than I'm probably capable of, and so I keep going.
Well, that's the game, though, right?
I suppose.
That's the game in any art, though.
Yeah.
That's the game in acting.
But
that's the game
that symptom and symbol is an example to me of something that you write that becomes part of the material and all of a sudden defines the material and has you asking these deeper philosophical questions and makes the work better than it is. You recall something from your past, from something you heard, from something you've seen, and all of a sudden you're smarter on the page than you actually are.
Well, yes, I couldn't agree with you more. Have we said that before to each other? I feel like that felt rehearsed. But
you usually check out about 5 minutes into the conversation, so I think I've said it several times. But
it's just because I'm doing other things. It's not because I find you boring.
Yeah.
I think what it is for me also is those are the points where I realize why I'm writing that thing.
Yeah.
I didn't even have that in my mind when I started, but when I started, I had an idea that this situation or this character or this plot is going to be meaningful to me and call in other meanings to it. And when something like that does happen, it tells me, oh, you're on the right road, you're on the right track here, because came out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Do you think of the Reservoir as scary? As
the actual Reservoir or this book?
No, the book.
Oh, no.
No, yeah.
Although it does get pretty dark, and there's a lot of blood and stuff, and sickness and disease and death, so it can be scary. There's seagull attacks, for Christ's sakes. I mean, that's
terrifying.
Scary stuff.
Yeah.
Seagulls here in Seattle, they're everywhere. So
not as terrifying.
Imagine when they start attacking.
Not as terrifying as that 7 p.m. duet, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Here's a great first question. You've filmed in the Northwest, obviously, X-Files, Twin Peaks.
Near here.
Which places have the scariest motels?
I think New Jersey.
That is a fair answer.
Yeah.
There's a good question. What character, whether in your writing or your acting, have you felt the most identified or related with? And was there one that was the hardest to develop or embody?
This is going to be the non-answer and maybe infuriating, but whatever you're doing, whatever character you're doing, you feel like, oh, this is the closest to me that I can get, because that's kind of your job, is to manipulate yourself into the character and the character into yourself, and or to highlight certain aspects of yourself that you think are going to make this character come alive or are true to that character. So I guess you're just constantly fine-tuning aspects of yourself to be that guy or this guy or the other guy. But I would never like look on a page. I've never looked on a page and gone, oh my God, that's me. Look at that. You know, it's like, no, it's never been like that.
Is it a different kind of embodiment, writing a character?
Different what?
Is it embodying the character differently when you're writing fiction than when you're playing a part? Do you, or do you think some of the same tools are being used?
I think some of the same tools are being used, especially with dialogue, because I think that dialogue is character. So when you start like hearing a character speak to you or speak through you, it's a real great moment, because you go, oh, I'm getting the character because the words are, I'm seeing his voice appear. And in fact, I've had the voices talk to me, like characters will, when I'm writing, characters will say, you know, David, fuck, you know, you got to give me a little more airtime here. You know, like, I know you think you're funny, but you know, you haven't shown me 360, and it's time to give me a little more run here. You know, so I love those moments. And when characters actually will say, I wouldn't do that. You know, like you see the cliche of the actors, like, I wouldn't do that. But it's characters like that too in your head, like, maybe you're right.
Does being a writer, when you're playing a part, make it harder to read dialogue you don't buy, you don't believe?
It used to. I would think I would want to change dialogue a lot, but I think that's a weakness, because the weakness was I wasn't doing the work to make that dialogue work in the character. I would just kind of, oh, let me rewrite this to make it easier for myself, rather than doing the work to make that work outside myself in a way. Yeah. Or, you know, if it was really shitty, then, you know, sometimes I'm perversely attracted to really shitty dialogue, because I'm like, I'm gonna make that shit work. You can't believe it, but I made this whole thing work, and it was nonsense.
Yeah. I'm just imagining you going to Central Park looking for someone to run lines with as the bear, looking for like a tallest, scariest
cast
person.
the bear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, weirdest experience in Central Park. Can you remember?
Ooh, I don't know if it qualifies as weird, but it was funny. When I first went back to New York after doing, it was probably the first season of the X-Files, and I think I was jogging around Central Park, and this cop car pulled up alongside me, because I was not around the reservoir, I was around the bridle path. And this cop kind of leans out and goes, Agent Mulder, we got a dead body. Go back over there.
Really? Did you solve it?
Yeah, I did. I said, it's aliens, man.
Skip straight to the ending. I think these two questions are related. Why hasn't Yale given you an honorary PhD, and how do we get this done? And your cameo in The Chair was brilliant. How were you approached for that role? What did you feel like that particular role, why did you feel that would work well? In The Chair, you played a version of yourself.
Yeah, I played a guy named David Duchovny, and I thought, yeah, I could do that.
But I don't believe the dialogue.
Yeah. This guy's a jerk. The honorary degree, I don't know. Honorary degree seems like, you know, if the person who wrote that question wants to actually try and make that happen, please go do it, because that would be fun. But I feel like honorary degree is like, why? It's like you didn't do shit, you know? Do you actually go home and go, yeah, I have all that knowledge that this degree stands for?
I always marvel at those people who have like 40 honorary degrees.
Yeah.
Do they just keep thinking, yes, now I'm a surgeon?
I know. It's like, I'm a fan of the hard work, you know? Like, you can give it to me. I didn't do the work, so don't give it to me.
Yeah.
But give it to me.
And was it your real dissertation in The Chair?
My Princeton senior paper.
Yeah.
They might have mentioned the subject of my Yale dissertation, but that role came about because Amanda Peet, who I'd worked with, she was the showrunner and the creator of The Chair, and she called and said, I want you to come on and be this Hollywood type who gets honorary degrees and is going to teach literature, because, you know, now you're writing, and the school wants to draw attention to itself by having, a flashy hire, and you swim in your pool in a red Speedo. And I was like, whoa, wait. She said, I think it's so funny that someone like you would be reliving like their iconic moments when they're alone. I said, really? I mean, that's so ridiculous. Have you been spying on me? And at first I said I didn't want to do it as me. I said, I think this will be funny if I'm just a fictional famous person. And then I came around to seeing it was funnier if it was me. But I did that on Sanders with Gary, and it's fun to do, but unfortunately people do actually think that that's me, Unfortunately, whatever, I can live with it, but yeah, people think I'm that much of a dick that I would swim in a red Speedo in my private pool.
I mean, the fact that they think you would only have one color Speedo. You probably have a dozen. They're probably, yeah.
I had a dozen there was no fittings, I mean, I flew to Pittsburgh. I said yes. I flew to Pittsburgh for one day. We shot everything I did in one day, and there were like 5 Speedos, and they didn't know what, I was like,
So wardrobe had like 5 Speedos to
sure
choose
they
from?
did, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does not happen to
And
novelists,
it's like,
I gotta say.
Dookie.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, man. But I'd do anything for her, clearly. I love Amanda Peet.
Yeah, it was great. It was so funny. You're also publishing a chapbook, Poems and Lyrics.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask about that. I'm always kind of amazed at those lyrics that also work as poems. And, I love Stay on the Train, the scenery will change. That's a line you could imagine, as a sort of aphoristic line of poetry.
Yeah.
Are there songs that to you work as poetry? I noticed that Kashmir is the sort of the driving song in here, and it's got such, I started thinking what perfect energy that is for this story, in a way.
Well, Kashmir figures in this story. It's on Ridley's phone. It's his ringtone. And Kashmir was my wake-up call, my alarm for many, many years, mostly because I'm of an age that doesn't know how to change the song on the alarm once it's set. So it wasn't that I was in love with Kashmir as an alarm, because it takes some getting used to, because it's rough. It's rough to wake up at 4 a.m. to Kashmir. But so it just was something I threw in, and then lyrically it made sense, because Kashmir, I don't know if you know it, but it's kind of this Middle Eastern riff on sand and time, and in the Led Zeppelin-y bombastic way, and it really worked. And then, as you know, Jess, and all the writers out there know this, that if you're publishing a book and you want to use an epigraph, and the epigraph is from a song, you have to pay for it. And paying for songs, which I'm all for, is half is the publishing, which is the lyrics, and half is the performance. So you'd pay half for the publishing. So I went through this with Truly Like Lightning because I wanted to use a U2 song. Same thing happened with this, was like $3,000. I was like, yeah, I have money, but I don't want to spend $3,000 on that. So I was like, fuck Kashmir. I'll find something else. And I found this great quote, Robert Plant talking about making Kashmir, which is now the epigraph. And it didn't cost me a penny.
That quote is great, too.
I know, it's a great quote.
Yeah, it's better than any Led Zeppelin lyric, I think. It was really great.
Yeah.
But so when you were looking through your lyrics, were there some, when you went to read them as poetry, did they change in some way? Did you see them differently?
No, but I've always wondered at that alchemy of when a lyric suits a melody or suits a song, or when a lyric becomes transcendent. I'm not claiming any of this for myself, but I look at the great lyricists, even Dylan or the Beatles or even Petty sometimes, and Leonard Cohen, and Amy Mann, Joni Mitchell, and you look at you're moved by these lyrics so transcendently, and then you look at them on the page and they don't work. And it's an amazing feeling to go, they know that they don't work on the page too. You know, lyrics have to back off a little bit and let the music carry so much, and it's just this very intricate give and take that happens. So a lot of the times, if a lyric works really well on the page, it's probably doing too much. It's probably getting in the way. Sometimes
Getting in the way musically, you think?
I think so, yeah. Yeah. So, you know, like think "Don't Let Me Down," you know. I mean, what a dumb lyric, right? But you hear it in the song and you're like, that's it, man, that's all of life right there. And so that happens. I guess Dylan and Cohen are probably closest to poetry on a page, but it's rare and it's hard, and I'm not sure that it's something to aspire to, you know. I'm not sure that works best in a song.
Are you working on another album now?
Well, kind of. I mean, I'm always like writing songs, so I guess that's working on an album. But we're not recording right now.
I always marvel that musicians call their work play. Musicians always sit down to play.
We're playing, yeah.
Do you find that a different release than when you sit down to work on a story? Do you feel more like you're working, or do you have that sense of play when you're?
Well, it's
writing?
playing with others, which I enjoy, and writing is playing with yourself, right? So. That's a different kind of play, but I do think of it as playing. I mean, because because when I'm writing, I do feel energized and I feel very alive. And when I'm not, I'm just constitutionally, I guess I've made a life out of playing at certain things. So it's what makes me vital and engaged. So I feel that way when I'm writing, so I think it must be play. And it is play. You're just making shit up, you know? I mean, it's deep play, but it's play.
All right, off the top of your head, you can win an Academy Award for Best Actor, or you can win a Pulitzer Prize for a novel. Right now, which do you pick?
I'll take the Pulitzer and the honorary degree from Yale.
Yeah, didn't I tell you to stay in your lane? I think someone asks what fuels your writing sessions. They give two examples:
Coffee.
Mary Jane or caffeine. Is there? Can you tell when it's going to be when you have something to say? Is it more that you feel like writing, or that the idea is there?
The idea is there and wants to be written, and I like to get to work really early in the morning, right out of bed, so that my mind isn't quite acclimated yet to consciousness, and I feel like with an injection of caffeine, I'm in the perfect, kind of heightened state of awareness and lack of awareness that is good for me, and then I crash, and it's very sad for myself and anybody in the vicinity.
How long does it take for the crash?
Well, I usually write in like 4 or 5 hour sessions. I mean, I can't write for more than that. You? Can you write for more than 4 or 5 hours?
I used to be able to. I mean,
Yeah.
It's funny now. I'll look at the clock and I'll be like, God, that was a great stretch. And it'll be 8 minutes, But
Oh, I'm exhausted.
yeah, beat. Yeah.
Not a lot of words, but they were really good ones.
But I think when it's going well and that you don't feel the time,
you don't.
it's so exhilarating. And
You
but I
feel
definitely
the
am-
back, though. You feel
Yeah,
the back and
yeah.
the neck.
No, when the shoulders hunch up and yeah.
Yeah, do you find you're holding your breath sometimes?
Yeah, holding my breath
Isn't that
or
the best?
or sweating
Yeah.
or yeah. No, it is really
It's like a possession.
Yeah, real self-hypnotic
Or
when you
sickness.
get into it. And then you long to be in that place again,
Yeah.
too. If I go a few weeks without a good writing day, I do start to feel bereft in some way.
Yeah, I don't. I feel fine.
I know you don't. Yale will notice that. Adapting any of the novels to film, would you feel differently about them? I know Truly Like Lightning, Bucky fucking
Yeah.
Dent. I know there have been attempts. Do you feel closer to those? Are they your babies, or did they just go into the sausage factory like everything
Yeah.
else?
No, I'm interested to see them made sausage. I mean, I don't have a precious kind of ownership over them. In fact, I seek out collaborators who I think will bring something different to it that I wouldn't bring. They bring another perspective, and if I like their perspective, I like the work that I've seen them do, I want them to bring that to mine, and then let's see where we get, because I've told the story. I wrote the book. I told the story the way I wanted to tell it. It's done. This new medium is a new story. If it's a movie, it's a new story, and it has nothing to do with that. I mean, obviously it's going to come from that, but those are two different things, and I welcome the collaborative aspect of whatever it's going to be.
And could you see the Reservoir being in another form?
Weirdly, I do. I've been thinking about what would that be. If the pandemic was still going on, it'd be a perfect movie to, just because there's one actor or two and open spaces. So
I almost saw it as a play for that reason. I could see a stage play.
Yeah, I've actually thought of it as like, did you ever see Swim into Cambodia?
Oh yeah.
Like if I was reading the story, like Spalding Gray reads his journals, but then behind me you'd see it kind of dramatized, and then I end my Spalding Grayness like 3/4 of the way through, and then I go home to Central Park, and it turns into the end of the story for real. Outside of that, what do you think?
I'm in. Yeah, let's
tell the Pulitzer committee about that.
After we get that whole Yale thing done, we'll work on staging that. Yeah,
We're honorary degrees.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'm an honorary surgeon.
Yeah,
You're in
right.
good hands.
Yeah. I should probably get a degree before I get an honorary degree, actually. And so the next thing you're excited about, is there something that...
Well, actually, we have an idea that we're working on. I'm
we do.
excited
We're
about
working-
that. I don't want to talk about it.
No, don't
but
tell these people. They'll steal it.
But I'm excited about that. I've been trying to work with Jess on the film or TV side for years, and we've never gotten it together. But I
don't feel like you've been trying that hard, actually. I don't feel like you've come to Spokane once. Oh, you have come to Spokane once. I take that back. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
I take that back.
Yeah.
That's when you decided it wasn't quite like New York, that I'd oversold it a little bit.
I came to Spokane for 3 days to reshoot stuff for The Joneses, which was a movie he did in like the aughts.
Yeah.
And Jess brought me to his basketball game.
But I didn't tell them who I was bringing. And they're just like, that looks like David Duchovny. And I think you were such a better basketball player that they thought, it can't be him. So I think that speaks well for you.
It does, but I was so sore for weeks after that, because I haven't played on asphalt since I was a kid.
Yeah.
You still play on asphalt?
When I can play, yeah. We don't have indoors in Spokane.
Really? No structures?
No, all the courts are outside. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do still play on asphalt sometimes.
You're a god.
Well, I want to thank you so much. The book is brilliant.
Thank you, Jess.
I think it's my favorite it's in my top 5 of favorite of your books. So I give it a rave, a full rave.
A rave, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Jess. As always, it's been fun talking to you in front of people.
Yeah.
And the thing, we've never actually had a private conversation. We've only ever talked in front of people.
That's right. Yeah. We'll gather people on the street.
And I know this isn't Jess's night, but I don't know if you know his work, but Jess is a brilliant writer. That's enough. That was uncalled for. But yeah, after you buy my book, please check out his crap.
I believe we've snuck some Jess Walter bookmarks into your book. So, yeah.
I've heard tell of that.
Yeah. But thank you so much. Thanks for coming to Seattle. And I think
Jess.
you're going to sign some books.
Sign
Stay
books.
on your own side of the table, but